Exodus is, in short, incredible and one of the least talked about mutants, and I want to fix that. In this video, we'll talk about the origin story of one of the most powerful mutants ever to exist, his ridiculously overpowered abilities and his unique weakness. And in the middle somewhere, we'll talk about his character development throughout his lifespan and how he became a member of the Quiet Council. Without further ado, let's go. Before we go to our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Exodus' origin, from an acolyte to a counselor. Bennett du Paris, usually just called Bennett du Paris or Exodus, was a French crusader from the 12th century. When his mutant powers awakened, the mutant apocalypse further honed and enhanced them. After the transformation, he was given the title Exodus. He was later sent to kill his friend Sir Eubor of Garrington, aka Black Knight. He betrayed his master Apocalypse and was consequently entombed for thousands of years. Magneto reawakened Bennett, and after that he joined Magneto's cause as one of his acolytes and became his right-hand man. Let's delve deeper into his early life before discussing the modern age further. Black Knight Exodus, Exodus' past. From another time in a parallel dimension, the Eternal, Circe, uses all her might to bridge the gap between the current place and the world in a desperate attempt to return home. Elsewhere, sometime in the 12th century, during the Crusades, Bennett du Paris awakens his friend Eubor Garrington. Eubor wakes up with a haze around his mind, disoriented, and Bennett has to remind him of their quest. Eubor feels he doesn't belong there, but he listens to Bennett's plan for their mission. Bennett claims he has pinpointed the location of the ancient tower, and soon after, Sarid enters their tent. Eubor takes up the challenge and, upon provocation, knocks Sarid down with a swift kick. The ebony blade he had unholstered sings to him as he feels strangely empowered and guided by its obsidian steel. Somewhere near the encampment, Circe thinks of the Gan-Josin between her and Dane Whitman, the psi-emotional bond present between her and Black Knight. Another thing she finds strange is that Dane seems trapped in the body of his ancestor, the second Black Knight during the Crusades era. She wonders why they ended up at this juncture in time just when the other Crusaders discovered her. Chauvinistic and bigoted remarks of the 12th century ensue, and Circe tries to fight her way out. For an unknown reason, her powers hurt her when she turns one of them to stone, and without any effort, she's captured. Eubor holds Circe in his arms and feels strangely connected to the one he doesn't recognize. Bennett suggests using Circe and her magics to their benefit for their quest, but Eubor disagrees as they part ways after a fight. Later that night, Circe regains consciousness, still under Eubor's care, and she calls him Dane. He's visibly confused, but he decides to take Circe along to follow wherever Bennett might have gone. Several miles away, Bennett is close to collapsing under the heat just when he hears a voice that urges him to keep pushing. A boulder falls on him, and his inner power awakens to protect himself. The Scarab Beast makes its presence known soon enough and challenges du Paris to reveal his latent powers. Bennett has always felt different and knew that he had an inner power, but he could never manifest until now when he was pushed to the brink of death. When he realizes his sword's uselessness against Scarab, he's forced to use his powers further to eliminate the threat. A few miles away, Circe and Eubor get to talking while searching for Bennett. Circe explains how she and Dane were brought in this time from the 20th century. She and Dane Whitman, a direct descendant of Eubor Garrington, were counted amongst the mightiest heroes on Earth. She reveals that she's afraid they're now stuck in the past and that Dane's soul might be trapped deep within Eubor's. Eubor sacrifices himself as an act of honor, stating that he must protect his future relative just as she had. Circe and the Black Knight embrace each other, and Dane returns to the Black Knight's body soon after. Eubor's soul leaves its shell, heading towards the eternal peace he fought a lifetime to attain. Dane comes back to his senses, and the heroes are quickly captured by En-Sabanur, aka Apocalypse. Exodus makes his entry and exclaims that the one known as Bennett is no more. In the dungeon, Circe is the only one conscious of hearing it. She finds it hard to believe that Bennett is the one known as Exodus from her time. Exodus calls her frail and leaves the room with Dane. Above, Apocalypse commands his new soldier, Exodus, to finish his friend, the Black Knight. A fight erupts and the mystic obsidian of Dane's blade rends apart Exodus' body and soul alike. But to his surprise, it matters little to Exodus as he recovers nearly instantly. Circe arrives in the nick of time and uses her psionic powers to subdue Exodus. Dane argues with her to find a better way as he refuses to kill his friend, but she reminds him that his friend Bennett is no more. It is just Exodus now, which is why Dane recognized Exodus when they first met in the 20th century. Exodus's psionic powers prove too much even for the eternal Cersei, and the psionic feedback expels him from his mind. Apocalypse commands Exodus to finish the battle, but Exodus comes to a realization and turns against his master. Unfortunately, Apocalypse is too powerful in his current state and quickly incapacitates Exodus. Before going, Exodus reveals that Bennett's psyche is still alive within him, and he promises Dane they'll meet again someday. Some 6 months later in the Swiss Alps, the Black Knight leads his comrades into a tomb, following his ebony blade. They find Bennett's du Paris in a coma, cursed to be asleep in a crypt. While others can go in and out as they please, he tells his knights to stand vigilant over the tomb for as long as needed. Cersei and Dane talk about it and embrace each other, ready to go home now that Dane has looked after his own. Modern Age, Exodus's story in the recent past, the Acolytes and Blood Ties arc, Exodus's freedom and the mutant-human conflict. Magneto found the tomb and managed to grant Exodus his freedom. In return, Exodus became his right-hand man back in Avalon. In his first assignment, he came across the X-Factor team and refrained from saying something he wanted to say. His later appearance was when he confronted X-Force, and it's safe to say that they couldn't have done anything different to change their fate. Exodus was too mighty for them, and they had to invade Avalon later to recover their squad mates. He later met the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants to recruit them, but he failed. Annoying him, he finally had to assume leadership of the Acolytes when Magneto was mind-wiped by Charles Xavier in an attack on Avalon. Mirroring his past in the 12th century, he questioned his allegiance when Colossus joined the Acolytes. Genosha went into a war when the mutant-human tension crossed the boiling point. Exodus arrived to protect the mutant kind and wished to destroy the humans. When the Avengers showed up to stand up for their teammate and mutant Quicksilver, Exodus made short work of War Machine and Cersei. Exodus soon found a culprit for the conflict, the traitor and the previous right hand of Magneto, Fabian Cortez. This time, Cortez had Magneto's presumed granddaughter, Luna, with him. Cortez warned the Avengers that they must defeat Exodus if Luna was to be saved. The heroes proved to be no match for Exodus, who saved Luna and seemingly killed Cortez. Moments later, Exodus declared to the Genosians that they must eliminate humankind or the entire island would be crushed under his force field. The Avengers and the X-Men joined forces but still failed. It wasn't until Professor X intervened that Black Knight found an opening in Exodus's defenses and gravely hurt him with his ebony blade. Exodus had to make his escape, not before almost killing Quicksilver. Black Knight felt like he remembered Exodus from somewhere but couldn't place it, as this was before his time travel in the 12th century. High Evolutionary Arc, where Exodus was defeated, and Apocalypse, the 12th, Exodus's loss over Genosha. After his defeat, Exodus took some time to recover strength and return as the leader of the Acolytes. He noticed the High Evolutionary in his experiments and considering them against the natural flow of life. He ordered an attack. High Evolutionary's base, Wundagore Mountain, was captured despite the opposition of Quicksilver and the Knights of Wundagore. The High Evolutionary himself had escaped in the nick of time. Exodus's holy mission now was to eliminate all impure and artificial mutants, such as the High Evolutionary, his creations known as the Inhumans, and the ones infected with the Legacy virus. He then sent a team to find the High Evolutionary and Cortez to dispatch the Terrigen Mists in the Inhuman city of Attilan. Cortez failed, and the High Evolutionary decided to retake Wundagore Mountain. Man-Beast betrayed the High Evolutionary and took control of Isotope E, making him a match against Exodus. After a long and drawn-out battle, Exodus and Man-Beast concluded that their goals aligned, and they imprisoned Quicksilver, the Knights of Wundagore, and the Heroes for Hire. They took control over Isotope E for a short while, but Quicksilver eventually escaped and took it for himself. The boosted version of Quicksilver proved too much even for Exodus, and it was only a short time before he lost. The High Evolutionary, now 20 feet tall and enraged, required the combined psionic might of Stina, Exodus, and Man-Beast to subdue, but before he was killed, Quicksilver intervened. The battle resulted in a defeated High Evolutionary, Stina incapacitated, and Quicksilver returned to normal. Exodus, with one final attempt to end the High Evolutionary, was halted by Black Knight, who allowed Exodus in his mind and let him discover they were friends centuries ago. The discovery led to Exodus's defeat and subsequent entombment back to where he had risen from. A changed man now, Exodus escaped his confinement once more. He disguised himself as Magneto and used his technologically boosted psionic powers to bring peace and allowed the mutants and humans of Genosha to coexist with peace. Eventually, he was unmasked by the X-Men, and having lost control, he witnessed Genosha descend into civil war once more. Emotionally devastated by the previous incident, Exodus strongly believed that the mutants were superior and formed a new brotherhood to lead an attack on a group of humans. The X-Men thwarted his brotherhood, and the revenge attack on the X-Men afterward was a complete disaster. Most of the brotherhood and Exodus were pulled into the mutant Zorn's head. It remains unknown how Exodus made his escape from that state. Exodus was one of the few mutants who still possessed their powers after the events of the M-Day. He immediately formed a new team of acolytes and joined hands with Mr. Sinister to save the mutant race. He and his acolytes joined the Marauders on the hunt for any precognitive mutants and later confronted the X-Men, deciding the fate of their first mutant born since M-Day. In a turn of events, Xavier was shot by Bishop, and while Exodus managed to repair his brain, he failed to recover the memories, at least not without Magneto's help. Magneto harmed one of his acolytes, Frenzy, which led Exodus into a fight only for a recovered Xavier to intervene and challenge him on the astral plane. Exodus offered Xavier a chance to lead the acolytes, but he refused, seeing the fate of all those entrusted to his care in the past. After another meeting with Xavier later, Exodus disbanded the acolytes and renounced his title of Exodus, becoming Bennett again. He went on a pilgrimage to discover a better way to serve the mutant cause. After the events of Utopia's schism, Bennett made his reappearance. He arrived at the Jean Grey School to unite the young mutants by making them change their attitudes or sending them to Utopia. Exodus and the Wolverine's X-Men soon fought, during which Rogue and Wolverine let Exodus read their minds to understand the situation better. But he wrongly inferred the information and blamed Cyclops, soon leaving to kill him. Wolverine's X-Men followed, hoping to stop him, but they had to resort to Cyclops' extinction team to aid them. The team was otherwise occupied, and their distress call was answered by Hope Summers' team instead. Together, they managed to incapacitate Exodus, and he was taken to Utopia. He was only released later from the X-Brig after the destruction of Utopia. The Mpox crisis caused Exodus to take over the operations of the shady organization known as Someday Enterprises. While it was intended to protect mutants by placing them in stasis, it was secretly weaponizing them to their benefit. Under Exodus's reign, he wanted to use their sleeper mutants to attack an anti-mutant rally. He was soon confronted by the X-Men and defeated by their leader Magneto. He was sealed in Zorn's temple only to be called upon as a failsafe if the threat to mutants ever reached the breaking point. When Magneto returned to his ruthless ways to ensure the survival of mutantkind, he established a new brotherhood of mutants with Exodus as one of its members. House of X and the Fall of X. Exodus was invited to join the nascent nation of Krakoa. He was asked to join the Quiet Council as part of the Winter Section. The Winter Section represented the morally ambiguous parts of mutant society, consisting of him, Mystique, and Mr. Sinister. Having a hatred for Sinister, he often clashed with him during his tenure. While in the Quiet Council, Exodus aided Magneto in terraforming Mars, supported Destiny for a seat in the council, and approached Hope Summers to fill the vacant seat when Magneto announced his retirement. He also attempted to eliminate Selene after her allegiances were put into question, but was stopped by Storm. Exodus found himself in the white-hot room, along with the hundreds of thousands of mutants, after the events of the Third Hellfire Gala. Orchis had forced Professor X to lead the mutant population through the sabotaged Krakoan gateways to their imminent doom. Exodus stepped up as the leader and guide of the lost mutants, believing his barren and desolate environment was not much different from the place he roamed centuries prior. The extraordinary abilities of Exodus. After that extensive backstory, let's finally get to Exodus's abilities and feats. Right off the bat, Exodus has been classified as an Omega-level mutant, which puts him at par with Magneto, which leaves only a handful of mutants who can genuinely defeat him alone. Exodus has been described as a psionic of highest order and possesses a vast array of superhuman powers, most notably telepathy, telekinesis, teleportation, and durability. His ridiculous power levels have been told to result from Apocalypse's tampering. The most unique trait of Exodus is that his mutant abilities were linked to his allies' confidence in him and his self-confidence. This has resulted in many times where he proved too strong for even a dozen heroes working together or was defeated relatively easily by Xavier. Exodus has been shown to disassemble the most complex devices and reassemble them in perfect working condition, and perhaps the craziest when he manipulated atoms and electrons to repair Charles Xavier's brain after he'd been shot in the head. Exodus can generate force fields capable of deflecting even the most powerful attacks, rendering him nearly unkillable in most fights. It even arranged to recover the entirety of Genosha one time. On a related note, when used offensively, his power-generated psychokinetic blasts are powerful enough to penetrate through Magneto's shields. Exodus summoned telekinetic constructs in the fight against Apocalypse and created a massive fist capable of injuring the Unimind. He can use his powers to fly at speeds exceeding Mach 2 and bolster his physical strength, speed, and reflexes. When he's bored of flying, he can teleport himself, large objects, and even groups of people with him. Exodus can leech and absorb the psionic energies of others around him, using them to his advantage. Being a powerful telepath, he can track mind control, possess, cause illusions, and protect himself against other psionic attacks. Being an empath, he can detect and alter feelings to a certain extent. If his psionic powers weren't already enough, Exodus's body possesses superhuman durability and a regenerative healing factor, making him immune to disease and granting him advanced longevity. Marvelous verdict. Like I said, one of the most incredible mutants ever, Exodus is super underrated. I love his unique trait of linking his relative power to his self-confidence and that of his teammates. Bennett Duparis has always fascinated me since his first appearance in X Factor number 92. His story is quite interesting, and I recommend reading some recent issues, especially the Fall of X storyline. His relationship with Black Knight is also explored in Black Knight Exodus, which is a great time travel story. I can only hope that they bring out Exodus and other cool mutants like him in future X-Men movies. That remains to be seen though, as for now, comic nerds like me have our comics. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. If you like our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.